Welcome everybody to our 6-week Practitioner Discovery Series. This is event, I believe, number 4, where I am so lucky to be joined again by our course mentor and lead course mentor and course educator, Elizabeth Gaines. And we're going to talk about D.R.E.S.S, our D.R.E.S.S for Health Success method, what it means, how we're different, and I'm really excited about today. So as you're joining us, I would love for you guys to share with us where you're joining us from and whether or not you are already a practitioner or you're looking to become a practitioner. We'd love to know who our audience is. So I am in sunny Saskatchewan, Canada. It's cold here, but it is sunny, so it is great. And Elizabeth, you are joining us from
Charlotte, North Carolina, where it is trying to turn cold, but it hasn't quite
Mhm.
succeeded yet.
Nice, nice. Fantastic. Well, I see lots of you coming in here. So again, please feel free, let us know where you're joining us from and whether or not you are already a practitioner or you're looking to become a practitioner. We've got
Atlanta, Georgia, aspiring health coach, Allentown, PA, Ottawa. Nice.
Ottawa. I was born and raised in Ottawa. Love it. Fresno, Wisconsin, looking to become an FDN. That's amazing, Danielle. FDN in Alaska.
Alaska. I once spent a summer in Anchorage. It was amazing. I loved it.
Fantastic. Last year of training as a nutritionist and a naturopath. We've got Ontario, Canada, Reno, Nevada. Amazing. Got a good group of people here. Dublin, Ireland. We love the Irish. Fantastic. Well,
Wow.
as you guys are popping those in there, thank you so much. Feel free to make sure you're chatting in there. We will have some time for some Q&A towards the end. Now, it is much easier for us if you do put it in the Q&A box, but if you put it in the chat, that's okay. We have our amazing colleague Brenda here, who's also going to help us answer questions in the chat. And we are going to get started because I'm sure Elizabeth has a lot of great information to share with you. So once again, Elizabeth Gaines is our lead mentor and course educator, and we are very excited to have her join us today. And she's going to talk to us about what does D.R.E.S.S mean and what makes FDN different. So Elizabeth, I'm going to hand it over to you so that you can get started.
Awesome. Gonna set up my screen share here because that's always the most fun part for me. Okay, great. Thank you so much, Brandy. So as Brandy mentioned, I am the FDN course supervisor, but I just want to take a moment to tell my FDN story. So I came to FDN after 10 years of working with victims of domestic minor sex trafficking in Harlem. And I was really, really burnt out, like spiritually, physically, mentally, financially, like all of it. Um, and I had what felt to me a lot like chronic fatigue. So, of course, I was going to the doctor, and the doctor was like, I think that you're just depressed. And and I was like, well, yeah, I am depressed actually, because I can't get out of bed for longer than a couple of hours without, having real serious loss of function. So like my life is kind of slipping by me. Yes, that makes me depressed. But there is real physical deficit. And they just couldn't find it. They just couldn't find it. And it took a lot of personal conviction and I feel like wherewithal to advocate for myself under those circumstances that no, I don't think that this is all emotional. I think there is an emotional component, but I definitely think there's actual physical deficit here. And it wasn't until I got to FDN and able to run functional labs on myself, which are not the same as diagnostic labs, to look at all of the physical deficit that I had done to myself with 10 years of this really, really difficult stress inducing profession. So I really owe FDN my life, to be honest. I was able to regain my health and love the program so much and believed in the methodology so much that here I am teaching it. So it's really my honor to be here with you guys today and share something that's so personal with you, and really just give you my heartfelt endorsement of what we're learning and what we're about to go into. So thank you for that. So today we're going to talk about DRESS, D.R.E.S.S. We call this the 5 pillars of a truly healthy lifestyle. And I know that this isn't rocket science for many of you. You know, we're talking about diet, rest, exercise, stress reduction, and supplementation. It isn't rocket science. A lot of you are going to be like, yeah, I know that already. But what I'm going to challenge you with is, okay, if you know that, then why are we getting uneven results in our practices? Why are we not like able to help every client? And my guess is that the problem is twofold. One is that even though you know all 5 pillars of DRESS, you're not utilizing recommendations in all 5 pillars of DRESS with your clients. Maybe you're doing diet, maybe you're doing diet and supplements, maybe you're even doing diet, exercise, and supplements, but it's still not enough. Like, how many of you are really talking about stress reduction? How many of you are really talking about rest? And we're going to give that an FDN perspective here today to really dive into what those things actually mean and how they might be much more comprehensive than the way that you are thinking about them presently. And the second is that you are making, if you are not utilizing lab work, then you are making general recommendations based on what you can see about that person and based on what you can see about their lifestyle. And always with the general recommendations, that's going to work for some people. It's going to completely not do anything for other people. And for others, it's actually going to make them worse. And that's why we are getting uneven results. So before we talk about imbalance and sickness, I first want to ask this question: what is wellness? And I want you guys to put in the chat, what is your definition of wellness? Just off the top of your heads, how would you define wellness? I want to hear some answers here before I move on.
Well,
What
while
is
we're
wellness to
waiting, I
you
mean,
guys?
I can share mine. So wellness to me is the freedom to feel well enough that I can enjoy life. I can travel, I can spend time with my kids. I don't feel bogged down by nagging symptoms. That's wellness to me.
I love that. Um, so Whitney says balanced lifestyle. Great.
Mhm.
Jackie says a body in physical, mental, and emotional harmony. Danielle says an alignment of mental, social, physical, and spiritual health. Claire says living with vitality. And Alyssa says balance in body, mind, and spirit. I love all these. Fantastic, guys. Way to go.
Mhm.
So I want to show you this wellness meter here. And from your answers, this is something that you already know, and I love that. So straight up and down the middle here, we've got no symptoms. And that tends to be standard medicine's idea of wellness, is like, let's just be in a state where we don't have any symptoms. And then here on the other side, on the red side, we've got all of the ticks downward towards lack of wellness. So just a couple of symptoms out of a range of many that we could talk about: low energy and fatigue. Then it moves to pain, sickness, and rundown. Now we've got a diagnosed condition. And if it gets bad enough that we're lacking energy in enough cells, then we're going to see cell death and eventually organism death. That's not good. So then we go back up to this like state of no symptoms. Um, the state of no symptoms is what standard medicine calls health. But as all of you are identifying, this is what we call a state of neutral health. It is neither good nor bad. It is the I'm fine type of health. It's the I can't complain type of health. Um, and that's not going to get it done for us because we are people of destiny. We are people who are meant to do things in the world. We all have a purpose. We're up to big things. We have rooms that we need to walk into. We have conversations that we need to change. We have books we need to write. We have stages we need to speak from. We have people's lives to make better. That is what we are up to. That is our destiny. Every single one of us has a unique destiny, and we are not getting it done with, I'm okay. I'm fine. Eh, I don't have anything to complain about, because that also comes with neutral motivation, neutral ambition, neutral feelings about life, and we deserve better. Our legacy as human beings is to have vibrant health and to make an impact in the world. And we are not getting it done with, eh, I'm fine. So, on the other side of the meter, there we've got all of this vibrant health and abundant well-being that we've been talking about. So high energy, function as high as it can be, cells doing their job at top performance. And on the opposite of death, we've got 100% function. That is not out of the question. That is where the body wants to be. That is where the body is working towards being. And that is what is at stake for all of us in terms of our own wellness and the idea of wellness that is not only our birthright that we have inherited from generations before us, but it's the legacy that we're going to leave. What are we going to say is normal health for our children? What sort of path toward 100% function are we going to give them so that they can meet their destiny, so that we can step up into the spotlight when it's our time, and then when it's their time, they have the abundance and the health and the wellness to also be people that can meet their destiny. These things are all intertwined. So, can the body heal itself? We all know that it can. So, if you break your leg, your bones are going to knit back together. If you get sick, your body is eventually going to overcome that sickness and kick it on out of there. Yes, the body can heal itself, but there are limits to this. And we know that there are limits to this because if there weren't, none of us would ever get sick and none of us would ever age. Wouldn't that be nice? But what we have is a savings versus a spending question. So we have this thing in the body called innate intelligence. So this is the reserve of healing ability that's called vital reserve. Not infinite, but it's there. And human beings have always been challenged by their environment. So, in the early days of being human, when we still lived in caves, that environment was presenting challenges like, can you survive this really harsh snowstorm? Can you figure out how to get food when there isn't any? Can you get back to your community when you've got a broken leg? Here's this really crazy virus. Can your body heal from it? So you either did or you didn't, right? Um, and so now the environment still gives us a lot of challenges, but they're sort of in different forms. We no longer sort of have to worry about, am I going to die from a broken leg? And most of us in the world do not have to worry about, do I have enough food to get me through the day? Most of us in the world do not have to worry about, am I going to live through this really harsh weather? Um, but we do have all of these mental and emotional stressors, environmental toxins, and poor lifestyle. And all of these are challenging our vital reserves. So that's where we are spending. So at the end of the day, if you have more in savings than you have spent, you are not going to get sick. And if you spend more than you have saved, then you will get sick. That's just the the reality of it. And going back to this wellness meter, where you fall on this wellness meter is relatively how far in debt you are or how much you have saved. So maybe you're not that much in debt and you're just sort of over here on the first red arrow. Or maybe you don't have that much in savings. So you're just over here on the first blue arrow. So there's always more that we can save so that we can get over this savings versus spending problem that's really going to dictate how we age and whether or not we get sick. So, who is the main spender of our vital reserve? In FDN world, we're going to call this stress. And we're really going to get into the definition of stress a little bit later to show you its very many forms in ways that you perhaps have not thought about it. But the main spender of vital reserve. So, do we have enough? Do we have savings left at the end of the day? Or are we in debt in our body's bank account? Is all a question of how much stress is there? So, just to put this in perspective, the Healthy and Natural Journal reported that 70 to 80% of all doctors' visits are for stress related illnesses. People who experience high levels of anxiety are 4 to 5 times more likely to die of a fatal heart attack or a stroke, and that stress contributes to 50% of all illnesses. Let me say that one more time. Stress contributes to 50% of all illnesses. So, there's some good news and some bad news about stress. And we're going to talk about its definition and why this is both good news and bad news. But one, stress comes in many forms. It's not just the form that you're thinking about right now. And stress is cumulative. So every single drop in the glass of water counts towards whether or not it stays within the bounds of the glass or whether or not it overflows. And that's what we mean by stress is cumulative. This is both good and bad news. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But I want to talk about this downward cascade of function under stress from an FDN perspective. So, what we have in this center circle, we're going to call this chronic stress. Now, human beings are not meant to be under chronic stress. We're meant to be under acute stress. So, uh, we can handle stressors that are really, really big because we have a lot of adaptive reserve or that money in the bank account. So, if you get a really, really big acute stressor in your life, then your body kind of spends and spends and spends and spends to deal with that stressor. And then when you survive that stressor, it stops spending. You come back down out of this acute sort of stress phase, you're healing. So now you're putting money back in the bank account to cover what you spent on that enormous stressor. But fast forward to modern life, and those stressors never stop. We are just constantly having stressors, one after the other, after the other, after the other. We're getting up, we're getting hurrying to get the family ready, making sure everybody has lunch. We're getting ready, we're getting in the car, we're driving through crazy traffic that just seems to get worse every year. We get to the job, we've got a bunch of deadlines we didn't expect. Maybe our boss isn't happy with us, or a coworker isn't happy with us, a client isn't happy with us. We then drive through traffic to get back home, hurry to like put some kind of dinner on the table, or maybe we just bought fast food or something for the family. And now we have to clean everything up and get organized and do laundry and make sure that we're ready for the next day. Like, where in there did we have that time to come back down and put money in the bank account? All we did all day was spend, 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 spend. And then when we go lay down at night, uh, we continue to worry because all the stressors are living up here. So when we hit the bed, we think about, oh, what didn't I do? What didn't I accomplish on the list today? How are we going to pay that bill next month? What are we going to do about your mom who's not feeling well? What are we going to do about your child that needs some special attention in school here or there? So we don't get good rest, and we don't get enough rest, and we didn't put enough money back in the bank, and now we wake up the next day and we do it all over again. So what is the real cost of that? Well, that means that our hormones are going to say, hey, I don't really need to worry about reproduction because all we have going on right now are these sort of very, very stressful situations that to me are equating life and death, as I can't really tell the difference between an emotional stressor and a physical stressor. An emotional threat versus a physical threat. It's all the same to the body. So the hormones are going to say, let me give you some of the money from my bank account. so that you can get your cortisol where it needs to be to deal with all of these stressors that are going on. And so our sex hormones start to get lower and lower and lower. And then our anabolic hormone, DHEA, that is supposed to build us back up, put money in the bank account, really deal with all of the damage that we did to ourselves during these periods of acute stress. It says, we're not safe enough to think about healing. So let me give you my money out of my bank account so you can continue to break us down and make sure that we get through these stressful events. So we start to get more broken down than we are built up, and our ability to um, heal ourselves really starts to diminish and get suppressed. Next up is immune. Immune says, hey, I spend a lot of money because I'm a big, big system. I have to be on alert all the time to make sure that I got things under control before they get out of control, and that I'm identifying the good from the bad, and that I'm leaving the good alone, and I'm attacking the heck out of the bad until it's not there anymore. And immune says, so why don't you just take some of my money and I'll start working at 70%. And then as the years goes on, it's 60, 50, 40, 30. Digestion is next up and says, hey, I also require a lot of energy to run at my full capacity. So let me just give you some of the money from my bank account and I'll start um, ramping down my operation. Detoxification also follows suit and says, I actually require a lot of energy to remove toxins from the body and keep everything running smoothly. So it would actually be a whole lot more efficient money wise if I just store everything, because the price of storage is less than the price of getting these toxins out of the body. So let me shove it into fat, let me shove it into bone, let me shove it into tissue, and we'll just hang on to it until there's enough money for us to get rid of it. So this sort of state of function, I think of like a cell phone when the battery starts to get low and you turn it on low power mode. The screen will still light up, but only at 30% and not for very long. That's all of your systems now doing that. So then we get a symptom. We get a symptom and we go to the doctor, and the doctor says, well, I can't really find anything wrong. Like in my case, I had the chronic fatigue, and the doctor was like, I just can't find anything wrong here. So then I'm out on my own with Dr. Google, and I'm saying, do I need to change the way that I eat? And so maybe I find a practitioner or a diet online and I try changing the way that I eat. It's like, maybe I need to be paleo or keto or carnivore or vegetarian or something, depending on which website I consult. And so I do that, and it doesn't do anything for me, or it makes me worse. So now I'm like trolling the aisles of my health food store, looking at the vitamins, looking at all the supplements there and saying, oh, what do I need? How can I make this work for myself? And then I get like this huge drawer of supplements that didn't work for me and have no purpose. What we call that supplement graveyard. And then I go to a biohacking conference and I'm like, oh, maybe I need to put red light in my ears, or I need to sleep on a vibrating plate, or, I need to wear a bunch of different devices that measure everything about me so that I can see really what's going on. But none of this actually addresses the deficits that were caused by stress. And so none of it is actually going to get me out of that hole. It's just going to keep me going to the next diet, the next supplement, the next gadget, the next therapy, the next practitioner. And this is what we call the cycle of trial and error. So, if any of you are familiar with this in your own life or in the life of the clients that come to you, please put in the chat me, so that we know who really resonates with this cycle of trial and error.
This is
So,
such a familiar story because every client that comes to us, they tell us that same thing. Like they tried all these things. Well, I saw it on this show and I heard about it on this podcast and I read it on this blog and my friend is doing this. And it's just this cycle and this hamster wheel that everybody is stuck on. And it's really sad. And we're getting a lot of me's in the chat. So
yeah,
I think
getting
this
a
is
lot of me's in the
resonating.
chat.
This
Yeah.
is definitely
Yeah.
resonating.
So you guys get it. And I was right there too. I was listening to all the podcasts about adrenal fatigue and I was trying all the things, all the
Mhm.
things, and none of it was working for me. And there's a certain shame and isolation in that I'd like to really articulate because you may talk to your friends and they'll be like, oh, well, this thing really changed my life. And it doesn't change your life or it makes you worse. Or you talk to another person who's like, this supplement made all the difference for me. And then it doesn't do anything for you or it makes you worse. And another person is like, oh, well, I started sleeping on a grounding mat and that's like really improved my insomnia. And so spend a couple $1,000s on this thing and it doesn't do anything for you. And you start to think it's me. I'm broken. I'm the one who just can't be fixed. Everyone else is able to figure it out and I'm not. And I just want to call out that this cycle of trial and error is such a universal experience. This is not you in a vacuum being broken. This is you doing the best that you can with the information that's in front of you, but we're never going to get it done with this approach. This approach just doesn't work. So, uh, as FDNs, we've got one simple job, and that is to identify all the stressors or what we might call obstacles to healing, and then figure out how to overcome them, as many as possible. So, we have a 3-step program for this when we work with clients. One, we're going to sort it out with functional lab work. We've got to figure out where the bank account balances are now. Are we low in all the bank account balances? Are we low in just a couple, but we're wildly overspending in others? Like maybe my hormones are really, really tanked, but my immune system is spending all the money. It's out of control. So we're going to test in these foundational systems: hormone, immune, digestion, detoxification, energy production, and nervous system. We are not going to test according to symptoms. Symptoms are vague, and symptoms can be a result of any root cause. So we just want to get a snapshot right now of where we are on the wellness meter, of where our bank account balances are, of where we don't have any money to spend and where we spent way, way, way too much. That's what the labs are going to tell us. This functional diagnostic that is in our name of out of 100% function, what has been lost and where. And that's where we're going to turn to the labs. Now, the impact of lifestyle is largely invisible and it's easily explained away as aging, blah, blah, blah. Like, how many times have you been like, I'm just tired, I got a headache, and you're like, well, you're 40. So that's just your future. That's all you can expect from life is just to get worse and worse and until you die. Your golden years are behind you. And I say nonsense. I say nonsense. It's not aging, it's stress. It's how much money you have in the bank account. It is that idea that if we have savings left at the end of the day, we're going to feel great. And if we're in debt at the end of the day, we're going to feel old and tired and sick. And that's it. So the FDN system really uses that functional lab work to pull back the curtain on the real cost of your lifestyle. And I really like this quote from Hippocrates: before you heal someone, ask him if he is willing to give up the things that made him sick. And for us in our time, that is lifestyle. That is absolutely lifestyle. A poor lifestyle sets the stage for chronic illness. And lifestyle interventions, as simple as they sound, can profoundly change the picture of health. And so, step 2 is to create a personalized dress for health success protocol for your client based on their data and based on what you know about their lifestyle. And this consists of diet, rest, exercise, stress reduction, and supplementation. So let's really dive into each of these pillars and talk about what they are and why they are so powerful. So, first of all, with diet, if we don't have specific information about what the right ancestral diet is for the specific person, then we're just going to be making general recommendations. Um, and then sort of hoping, like crossing our fingers that that is enough. So, a good example of this is I had a client named Amy. She came to me from the cycling studio in my town. And the cycling studio, they're all like intense exercisers. They're like, let's see, we're gonna go in there and crush it. We're just gonna cycle like 1,000,000 miles today and it's gonna be great. Um, and their general eating advice there is like, okay, because you're exercising so intensively, you need more protein and you need healthy fat in your diet. You need to really limit your carbs because that's going to add to weight gain. And so Amy was dutifully eating this way and cycling like 5 days a week. And all she was seeing was breakdown of muscle, gaining of fat. She just wasn't making any progress whatsoever. So we put her through the testing and we recognized that actually she is a person who genetically needs more carbs than she does protein and fat. And I always feel uh, like pe- the people in this category are kind of foreigners to me because I'm a protein and fat person. That's where I do best. And it seems to them even really counterintuitive when you're like, actually, your genes from where you are from, your unique mixture, says that you need more carbs than you need protein and fat. And this is part of the reason why, um, because her body is slower at pulling energy out of packets of food. And so it needs those packets of food to be a little less dense and a little less hard to break into. Whereas somebody who is a fast oxidizer, they burn through the energy in packets of food very, very quickly. And so they need those packets of food to be a bit more dense and harder to get into so that they can have lasting energy. But she is one who needed those packets of energy to be easy to break into. And so all of that protein and fat that she was eating was really slowing her down, making her lethargic, really weighing down the system and causing inefficiencies that were helping towards the weight gain, helping towards the brain fog, helping towards the lethargy, and helping towards the breakdown of muscle. So having the right diet for a person is incredibly important. And general recommendations are only going to get you there 30% of the time. And when they do get you there, it's going to be luck. Is there anything you'd like to add to this, Brandy?
Yeah, and oftentimes this is hard for people to grasp because sometimes what we recommend to our clients might fly in the face of what the diet du jour is or what the recommendations are right now. I mean, who remembers the whole keto trend and now it's carnivore and now it's, that may not work for everybody. And they are coming to thinking that they're doing all the right things, but they're actually just not eating the right foods for them and it's making them feel worse. So this part's really, really important. And Carrie just made a point. Yeah, N of one. Absolutely. It's not general. You have to make sure that you're being targeted to the person that's sitting in front of you and what's going to benefit them the most.
100%. Yep. Thanks, Brandy.
Mhm.
Next, we get into the R of it all, which is rest. And I know a lot of us sort of know this in the back of our heads where we're like, yeah, sleep is important, I guess. Sleep is important, I guess. Um, but how many of us actually really prioritize sleep in our lives if we haven't had a major health crisis yet? I know I certainly didn't. Because also in the back of our minds is all of this societal messaging about you can sleep when you're dead and you only live once and fear of missing out and all of the other acronyms that I can throw at it. They're all there too. But the truth is that we are meant to rest and we are meant to rest at a certain time. So we are diurnal creatures, meaning that out of a 24-hour pattern of day and night, we are meant to be awake when it is daytime and asleep when it is nighttime. And as much as we try and mess with that, 8 hours of sleep is important, but 8 hours of sleep at the right time is even more important. It is important that we honor that diurnal rhythm that our bodies are craving and trying to get us back to. So, getting the right amount of sleep is important. Getting sleep at the right time is important, but also what you do to invite sleep in is important. So, what are you doing 2 hours before you're trying to go to bed? If you're a person that has trouble sleeping, are you on your telephone? Are you answering email? Are you running around your house, getting dishes done and doing laundry and those types of things? Or are you soaking your feet in Epsom salt, reading a book, having connective conversation with your family and partners, um, uh, doing things that are inviting in that parasympathetic, where it's like we're done dealing with the external world, we are safe, and now we can turn our attention internally to healing. If we don't take that time, what we might call sleep hygiene, if we don't take that time to really sh- uh, tell the body, hey, you can stop paying attention to the external world, and now it's time to focus internally, and we just hit the bed, then the body's like, whoa, am I safe? Am I still needing to worry about the external world? Like, are there still things I gotta deal with out there? Is it time to look internally? Can I sleep? And that's that sort of racing mind insomnia that hits us when we hit the bed. So, if we have good sleep hygiene practices, that can really help us invite in that healing parasympathetic state that sleep allows. Anything that you'd like to add there, Brandy?
Yeah, and I mean, in addition to that, the other thing that we do really, really well as FDN practitioners, and you're going to get to this when we get to the S for stress, is in addition to all of the sleep hygiene, we're also using the lab testing that Elizabeth talked about earlier on to identify things that may be interfering with their sleep. So there may be some other things going on, like blood sugar issues, or maybe there's something going on with the gut. So all of these things are important to look at in order to help clients or even yourself get optimal sleep. And again, this is why we are giving you some general information, but it's not general. We want to make sure we tailor it very specifically to the person sitting us in front of us and identifying all the blocking factors that are interfering with a good restful sleep, because it is crucially important. And it's one of those things that I think sometimes goes overlooked, because if you are not sleeping, your energy is going to suffer the next day. You're going to have issues with cravings. Your brain's not going to work well. You're not going to be motivated to, to go out and do a walk or go and do exercise. So this is a really important piece.
Yeah, sleep is where all the magic happens. It's where we repair, it's where we detoxify our bodies and our brains. And it's where we sort of like dump out all of the junk and then reset for the next day. So if we're constantly shorting ourselves on sleep, then we're not putting as much money back into the bank account every night. And then we're waking up in debt already before we even get out of the bed. We're waking up in debt because we didn't put enough money back in the bank account. Okay, on to another fun one. Exercise. Um, so I know a lot of you out there are probably come from the fitness world, or are part of the fitness world in some way. Maybe you're a personal trainer. Maybe you just are an exercise aficionado. Um, but a lot of us out there are over exercising, and I was definitely one of these persons who is over exercising. And Michelle and I were talking about this on our live right before we came on to this webinar about being part of the CrossFit community. And I don't mean to denigrate the CrossFit community because I do think it is a really great sort of cross-functional workout, and I, learned a lot in CrossFit. But the culture there, at least where I was like, do these insane workouts and leave broken, and that's like the badge of honor. Is to just have your workout annihilate you, to have trouble sort of walking the next day because you're so sore, or have trouble sitting down because you're so sore. And I know that my CrossFit coach was all about sort of like, did you throw up? If you didn't throw up, then you probably didn't work out hard enough. which now I look back on it and I'm like, that's nuts. That's so crazy. Um, so exercise is one of these things that should be adding to our bank account. It should be putting money in, making us more nimble, more agile, more adaptable, better able to meet dynamic changes in our environment. But when we are over exercising, we are taking money out of our vital reserve bank account. We are spending, spending, spending. Um, and that is going to really come back and hurt us in terms of if I'm putting myself into debt with my exercise, I will not be building muscle. I will be breaking muscle down. And then as I see myself losing muscle and gaining weight, I'm like, my natural response is, oh, I should be working out more, but I'm already working out 5, 6 days a week. So now, I'm adding in more or crazier workouts and I'm just not seeing anything but going downhill. And that's when everybody's like, well, you are over 40. This is what you can expect. Your body slows down. It's aging. No, it isn't. It's that we don't have enough money in the bank account to be doing this. This is overspending in this area, and it becomes a distress rather than a helpful stress. So this is where lab testing comes in really, really handy, is so that we can really get a sense, not just from symptoms, but from actual data of how much money there is in the bank account. Like, really, how much money is there that we're talking about? And then we can apportion it appropriately for, okay, if this is the amount that we have in the bank account total, how much can we really spend on exercise? And then we can design workouts that are much more appropriate to what's in the bank account while we concentrate on raising what's in the bank account so that eventually we can get back to doing a little bit tougher workouts. But we don't need to be doing this insane sort of um, uh, workout style that's so popular now. And I think about this, like, what were our ancestors doing? Were they were they, like, doing a one-arm hang from a bar with, like, a 20-pound weight strapped to their waist and trying to do, like, one-arm pull? They were not. They were not doing that. Um, they were doing short bursts of exercise, and then they were coming back to relax and rest. They probably worked about 20 hours a week in Paleolithic societies, and they spent a lot of their day sitting down, resting and relaxing, and putting money back in the bank account. So, uh, intense exercise, if it were your only stressor, would probably be okay. But you're also working a full-time job and you've got, money issues and you've got toxins in your environment and you're eating pesticide, like all the things, right? So there's so many other stressors that are already spending money out of the bank account. So here is a place where we can actually put some money back in the bank account if we can identify what is the appropriate amount of money that we need to spend on exercise given where we are in this moment. Anything else you'd like to add to that, Brandy?
Yeah, the other side of the spectrum is not exercising at all, because that is also a stressor. If you are not moving, that's leading to, being stiff, achy knees, achy joints, your hips hurt, your back hurts. You're just not feeling well overall. And so there's both ends of the spectrum. And if you're working with clients that don't exercise at all, this is where you may have to do a little bit of coaching and digging and find out why, like and it's not to say that you're going to have them go and run a marathon in 2 months, but it may just be getting them walking, getting them outside, getting them fresh air. There's a lot of stress relieving benefits that come from exercising. So you also have to look at that end. And to Elizabeth's point, over exercising, while it's a good stress, it can be too much stress if that bank account is already depleted. So it's good to understand both ends of the spectrum and work with your clients to find what's right for them, the sweet spot.
Awesome. Thank you, Brandy.
Mhm.
So now we move on to stress reduction. This is where FDNs really shine, in my opinion, because we identify a lot of different types of stress. Now, when I Googled stress, these are the types of pictures that came up. the type of stress that I'm sure all of you are thinking about too. So, being overscheduled and really busy and having all of these life demands and jobs that we don't necessarily like and that are full of stress and deadlines and pressure, and home situations where there's maybe stress between partners or stress raising families or stress about money, all of these mental emotional stressors. And these are major, major spenders of the vital reserve bank account in the category of stress. But this is not the only thing that that defines stress. What I didn't find pictures of were the environmental stressors, um, those sort of stressors of depleted soils where the food actually doesn't have as many nutrients as it did 100 years ago. The environment is sort of full of chemicals. There are these cell towers everywhere with this 5G picture. So the environment is not what it was. Um, the environment was definitely costly in our early days, but when we did eat, it was all organic. And when we did drink water, it was all incredibly pure. That's not the case now. So that on top of all of these other chronic stressors in the environment is crazy. So all of your personal care products that are filled with chemicals, everything that you are cooking in that has a Teflon coating, everything that you're storing your food in that is plastic or aluminum. If you are drinking sodas out of aluminum cans or getting food out of aluminum cans, all of this is adding to the toxic load as a stressor. I also did not find pictures of the physical stressors. So, if we are drinking 15 cups of coffee to get through the day, which I know at a certain point in my life I was, or if we have sort of chronic pain from old injuries, that is a huge sucker of money out of our bank account with where the body is constantly saying, God, how do I mute this pain so that we can get on with what we have to do? It's a huge sucker of money. Or if we have a job where we have to sit at a computer all day and we're not getting up and moving around as we should. I know I'm one of those. I have to sort of constantly think about that. It's why I appreciate dog ownership is because he's not going to sit all day, and he reminds me that I have to get up and move around and do things to take care of him. Um, so uh, I also did not find pictures of lifestyle stressors, of this over exercise culture, the junk food or the not sleeping, these types of things. So this is where FDN really shines, in my opinion, is that it allows this definition of stress to encompass everything. And this is where we come back to that slide. Let me get back there. This one where I said that it's good news and bad news that stress comes in many forms. The bad news about stress coming in many forms is that we've got a lot more of it than we all think that we do. But the good news is that even though potentially we can't necessarily change our mental emotional picture just overnight, because we are in jobs that we don't like, or we are in a lack of money, or we are in relationships that are experiencing issues, or we are caretakers to parents, or we do have kids with special needs that need a lot of caring for in various ways. We might not be able to change those situations immediately or at all, but we've got all these other stressors that we can identify and change, these little stressors. And this is also the good news, bad news of stress being cumulative, is that if even if I'm only identifying stressors that are costing pennies out of my bank account every day, if I identify enough of them, those pennies compound over time to become dollars and hundreds of dollars and thousands of dollars that get returned to the bank account day over day, month over month, year over year. So that's why it is important to have this very expansive definition of stress and to be able to look at it from all of these various areas and help our clients and ourselves take out as many of these stressors as possible. Anything that I missed there, Brandy, that you would like to talk about?
You didn't, but I think this goes back to your quote that you had at the very beginning. This is very, very key is now that you know that stressors encompass so many different areas, when you're working on yourself or you're working with a client, you want to make sure that they're actually willing to give up some of these things. And to Elizabeth's point, may not be able to give up everything, but even if you gave up half of them or made changes in half of them, you're making massive improvements. They do compound. Little baby steps, when they start to becoming more and more, they have a big impact. And so understanding that there are so many different types of stressors and you do have the power to change even some of them should give you a lot of encouragement. And you want to make sure that when you're working with somebody that they're willing to do it, because you could be the best coach in the world, you can educate them, you can give them all of this information, but if they're not willing to make those changes, nothing's going to change for them.
Yep, that's very true. And that's
Mhm.
why we also teach you how to onboard in our course to really watch out for who is going to be committed to the work
Mhm.
because it's being a practitioner in this way, I think is a lot like um, walking into the gym in a CrossFit class or something, and the workout is written on the board. That's great. I didn't have to come up with the workout, but I still have to do it. Otherwise, I'm not
Mhm.
going to see any change. And it's the same with our clients is like we can write the program, but they have to do it. We can't do it for them.
Right. And that's adding stress to you. Like if as a practitioner, if you aren't onboarding the right clients who are willing to do the work, that's going to become a stressor to you because you're going to think you're a failure. So that's another way to think about it as well, is it's important for you to make sure you're working with people who want to make change because you're putting a ton of effort in and you don't want that to turn into a stressor for you where you feel like you're failing and you're not getting results.
Awesome. Yep. Thank you. So then our last pillar, supplementation. I feel like this is the one where everybody's ears perk up because we have, whether we know it or not, been very indoctrinated into an idea that like you have something wrong and you take something and that fixes it. And so, yeah, diet, yeah, rest, yeah, exercise, yeah, stress reduction, but really it's the supplementation that's going to turn it around and make it better for me. And we at FDN recognize that really this is only 20% of the program. And that if you're really only doing the supplementation portion, you're not going to see the health gains that you might want to see. And so we're really adamant that all the pillars are equal, that no one pillar outweighs another pillar. And I know that my clients are certainly like listening out, especially for the supplementation, and they're kind of like, the rest of dress, whatever, but supplementation, that's going to fix it. Um, and so it's a big piece of education that I also do with them to make sure that they understand that supplementation alone isn't going to do it. Just like pharmaceuticals alone don't do it. We've really got to change the lifestyle. We have to change those places where the stressors are piling on and where the bank account is being drained by these particular lifestyle habits that we have. So our supplementation program at FDN is also really based on the lab results. We have supplementation in 4 categories. If a lot of you, I want you to put in the chat me if you have a supplement graveyard in your house where you have a drawer or a cabinet or a countertop or whatever that is filled with supplements that you tried for whatever reason and they didn't work for you and you stopped taking. I'm assuming that we're getting a bunch of me's. Yeah. I
Oh
see
yeah.
that.
Yep.
See the counter ticking up. Yeah. Yeah. And if you ask most people, like, why are you taking the supplements that you're taking? They're not sure. They're like, well, I heard it on a thing, or somebody recommended it, or I'm taking it for a symptom. I'm taking it to get rid of this or that, or I'm taking it because I'm tired, or I got brain fog, or it helps with blood sugar balance, or blah, blah, blah. So this approach to supplementation is going to lead to a supplement graveyard because it's like throwing spaghetti at a wall to see what sticks. And that is where we get the supplement graveyard. So at FDN, we have 4 different categories of supplementation. So we know why we are recommending what we are recommending. So the first is substitution. We've got to put back what is not in food anymore. And even if you are eating the best diet in the world and you have perfect digestion and perfect mucosal barrier and perfect assimilation of all of those nutrients, they are just not as plentiful in food as they used to be. And are some studies that have come out that say organic food is not necessarily better in terms of being more nutrient dense. It's just better in terms of not also coming with pesticides and a bunch of other toxins and toxic burden. But we've got to substitute some way for what isn't in food anymore. So a particular multivitamin, or if you think the client is lacking in a particular subset of vitamins or minerals or whatever, substitution is a huge category for that. Secondly, we have stimulation. So this is really reliant on the test results. What are those systems that are underperforming? By how much? Can we put in some supplementation that might encourage lifted, efficient function there where we're not seeing it, to really put money back in the bank account? Another is support. For s So for those systems that are absolutely overtaxed, stressed out, suppressed, underfunded, don't have any money, and they're still just trying and trying and trying, like adrenals. I think that's pretty true for everybody. Most of our adrenals are really overtaxed most of the time. You want to really bathe them in a supportive nutritional matrix specifically for them so that they can feel supported and they can calm down and they can relax and they can get back online in a healthier way. And then our last category is called self treatment for pathogens. So in FDN, we recognize that people are going to have pathogens. They're going to have overgrowths of opportunistic bacteria. They might have yeast. They might have other fungi. They might have parasites. All of this is a result of immune system being depleted and deciding that it needs to like give its money to the cortisol response and the mucosal barrier sort of being ripped up and not as efficient and all this leaky gut happening and these bad guys move in who shouldn't have been able to move in. So we always look at pathogens as a result of the problem. They're not the problem themselves, but they need dealing with because they are a stressor. They are one of these internal stressors that are taking money out of the vital reserve bank account. These guys get active at night. That disrupts sleep. That brings in more cortisol. They're taking food. They are sending messages to the brain that say, hey, it'd be really great if we had some sugar. And now you've got a sugar craving. Or they're like, oh, hey, it'd be really great if we had more carbohydrate. And now you've got a craving for potato chips or something that's not even coming from your own body. It's coming from those little guys that you're sharing your body with. So, self treatment for pathogens is a very important pillar of stress reduction, even though we do recognize this as a result of other imbalances. Uh, so, self treatment of pathogens is the last reason for supplementation. So within this way, we have really targeted supplementation that is there for specific purposes and therefore much more likely to produce a positive health outcome for the client than just like, well, I think you need this or this worked for somebody else or the sort of spaghetti on the wall approach. Brandy, is there anything that I missed there?
No, you covered it really, really well. And again, to your point, I'm going to reiterate when Elizabeth said this is 20%. So the other thing that occurred to me is that people are willing to, they come to us with money objections for working with us and doing the testing and doing the coaching. But yet they're always listing for the, well, what supplement? And they're willing to spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars on a supplement because they think that's going to fix the problem. Instead of focusing on the free things they could do, like go to bed on time, move, maybe change some of those personal care products, clean up the air, open the window. So it's also, I just want to reiterate that fact. This is only 20% of our protocol. Is it important? Absolutely, because as Elizabeth mentioned, substitution, stimulation, support, those are all very important, but it's only 20% of the solution. All of the other three are four, sorry, are extremely important.
Awesome. Thank you, Brandy. So, DRESS is really the answer to metabolic chaos. It's the roadmap to success as a practitioner. And what's really key about this is that even though no two DRESS protocols will look alike, it's the same roadmap for everybody. So, you don't have to reinvent the wheel as a practitioner. You know, this is what you're going to do. You're going to run these 5 labs. You're going to make recommendations in these 5 pillars of lifestyle. And that's what makes it a system that is repeatable, duplicatable, and much more likely to produce predictable results with your clients, which is then going to get you some waitlist referrals and really be able to build your practice from the results without you having to go out and hustle so hard. So, the key takeaways here are that dress is customizable for yourself or your client's specific needs, and that dress is the roadmap always going to be the same. We don't have to start from scratch with each person. We don't have to ask, what labs do I run? And what recommendations should I make? And that without all 5 pillars, we're not going to see massive progress. But all 5 pillars together, that's throwing everything you got at it. And that is most likely to have the deepest impact on health. So then we talked about steps 1 and step 2. Last step of the program is to run it. So everybody's different. Of course, we talked about this N of 1, but most are going to go through 3 phases within their health journey. The first is that relief phase where they really come to you desperate. They've got like a bunch of things that are plaguing them and bothering them. So you might go in with some intelligent allopathy to help with insomnia. You might go in with some intelligent allopathy to help immediately with indigestion and gas and bloating and things like that. You might go in with some substitution to really like lay that foundation. And then they're going to go into the corrective phase. And this is really where you're going to start addressing the imbalances that the labs show you. This is where you're going to start putting money back in bank accounts, where you're going to get spending under control, where people are spending wildly, and you're going to put money in the bank accounts where there is no money to spend based upon the data that you see in the labs. And then we get to maintenance phase, where they've been with you for a while. You've taught them everything you know about diet, rest, exercise, stress reduction, and supplementation. We are not trying to have clients forever. We want them to, at a certain point, say, I know how to take care of my own body. My health is my responsibility. And now I've got that system in my DNA. I know how to do it now. I know how, when something goes wrong, to evaluate and figure out what I need to adjust in my lifestyle to fix it. And that's when they're in the maintenance phase. We're like, okay, you don't need me all the time. Just kind of come back when new things arise and let's work on those. Or if you get to this point where you're like, I feel great, but now I want to feel superhuman. Now I want like way better function. Now you get to move into that phase of care with them, which is always very exciting. And as Reed says, there is no power boating to health. And what he means by that is that there's just no way to shortcut it. You didn't get to have no money in your bank account overnight, and you are not going to go to having a full bank account overnight. It takes time to really like do it correctly. And there's always going to be some zigzagging, like where you think it's going to go this way, but really it goes that way. Health is never just this like straight up trajectory. I wish it was, but sometimes like you make a gain and then they're going to feel worse for a while and then they'll feel way better and then they'll hit a plateau and then they'll come down and then they'll go back up again. And that's just the journey that we commit to walking with them. understanding that that is normal and that we have all the tools possible to help them find the things that are right for them to make that journey as productive as possible. So that is the end of our presentation today, and we are going to be happy to take some questions at this point, unless there's anything else you want to say, Brandy.
No, that's great. And we'll leave this slide up for just a few moments. So for those of you who, and there was a few of you that said interested in potentially becoming an FDN practitioner, I am doing a full course tour this Thursday. So if you registered for this series, you're already registered, but this is where I'm going to take you behind the scenes, show you what it looks like in the course, what you get, what to expect, and answer all of your questions there. So with that, like I said, we'll keep this up, but there are a couple of questions. So there's two questions that are related to each other. So I want to ask you this one first, Elizabeth, because I think the other question will make sense.
Great.
What is the validity of metabolic typing? Does FDN subscribe to the philosophy? Why or why not?
Yes, FDN does like the philosophy of metabolic typing to figure out what each person's individual macronutrient ratio should be, what their genes are best set up for, and how their body likes to utilize food. So we think of metabolism in two parts. So, one is that the cell has to make energy. And then two, the cell has to use energy to do its specific job. Both of these are part of metabolism. Metabolism, I think you go out there, you got to ask people what they mean by metabolism to make sure that you're talking apples to apples. There's a lot of definitions of metabolism out there. But for me, metabolism is in two parts. One, we got to make energy from food. And two, each cell has to use that energy to do its specific job. So, if we have the right food, then we're going to be able to make energy really efficiently and we're going to be able to do our job efficiently. But if we don't have the right food, and let's use the example of Amy from the spin studio, where she was eating way too much protein and fat for her body. Her body was having a really hard time breaking in and extracting energy from that dense food matrix. And so now she's got less and less energy to give to the cell to do its job. Now the cell is not going to be able to do its job well. So we're going to start to see inefficiencies across areas of function simply from the fact that the fuel wasn't right for her. So, yes, we absolutely subscribe to the theory of metabolic typing.
And this is another really great question. So this is somebody who's going through the FDN course currently, but she said, what do you do if you have different family members with different diet needs? I'm a fast oxidizer, my daughter is slow, and our recommended diets are almost opposite. And then we have other family members to think about. So I'd like to start with this, and then Elizabeth, I'd love for you to jump in. So I have a family of 6. I have 4 kids, and I am not a short order cook. So what I have found that works best. Now, keep in mind, if you were just yourself and you could just focus on yourself, you may be quote unquote perfect, but there is no perfection when it comes to food. And oftentimes, what I will tell people is stressing about it is worse for you than just eating the food that you think you shouldn't eat, because the stress is worse. Now, in this situation, what I generally do with my family is I will make a protein that almost everybody can have. We will have some sort of starch. I don't eat it because I'm a fast oxidizer, but some of my kids do. And we just have options or side dishes on the plate that are going to work for everybody. So not everybody's going to maybe want to have the baked potato. Maybe somebody's going to have the protein and the broccoli. So I just make sure that there's a component on the plate for everybody. And I don't necessarily have to eat that starch because it doesn't do well for me. Now, in the instance of, the question is high purine foods versus non-high purine foods. Again, I'm not a short order cook. I do my best. And if in one meal, somebody who's a slow oxidator might get a higher purine food, it's one meal. They can have different foods with breakfast and lunch. So a great option could be maybe you cook a whole chicken and you've got some chicken breast on there, but you also have some chicken thighs and some chicken legs. Those are high purine, whereas the chicken breast is not. So you could kind of divide it up that way. Again, try not to stress out about it because the stress of it is actually going to be worse than trying to be perfect or trying to make a different meal for every single person in your family. Anything you want to add to that, Elizabeth?
No, that's exactly what I do is I buffet style it. Just make like a buffet line and everybody can make their plate according to how they like to eat.
Yeah. And there's a couple people asking questions about the metabolic type. So this is an online assessment that we use where you're asked a series of several questions, and these questions ask a lot about you personally, your likes and dislikes, how you respond to certain foods. And one of the things that can be helpful when you do this assessment is if you have somebody who knows you well with you, because they actually may be able to give you a more honest answer than you can give. It's not diagnostic in nature, but it is very helpful, and it gives you an idea of what macronutrient ratio works best for you. And then we also leverage, I did answer this question earlier on, we also leverage food journals. We call them diet check record sheets. And this is an opportunity for us to educate our clients to listen to what their body is telling them when they're eating. And these can be very eye-opening because it's helping your clients to identify which foods are working for them and which ones aren't. It helps them to slow down and listen to their body. So we do a combination of that assessment, and we do use the diet check record or diet journal. Okay, can one's metabolic type change?
Yeah, it can.
Mhm.
I think of this a little bit like when there's metabolic chaos present, you're sort of looking at the metabolic type through muddy water.
Mhm.
And then as you start to peel back the layers of metabolic chaos, then the subjective assessment of how food feels or what food does changes a little bit, and the water gets clearer. And sometimes it changes so much that you change type, and sometimes it doesn't change that much. But generally, I don't see like fast oxidizers become slow oxidizers or slow oxidizers become fast oxidizers. I see mixed oxidizers fall off on either fast or slow.
Yeah. Um, so this is a great question. What tests do you use to find out whether a person has better absorption of metabolizing carbs or proteins or fats? So this is metabolic typing, but I do think we probably should discuss the other testing that we have that's looking at absorption, because she did say absorption. So that might be helpful for us to explain.
Sure, yeah. So we look at a mucosal barrier assessment to determine if there is mucosal barrier damage. We have a protein digestion marker called indikin that will let us know how efficiently protein is being digested and assimilated. We have a steatocrit marker, which is a measure of undigested fat. So we get a good look at whether or not fat is being broken down effectively in the body. We can look at what the commensal flora in the gut are doing, the ones whose job it is to break down food. Are they there in insufficient numbers where it's like they're struggling to help break down food? Or are they totally friggin' stressed out? And even though they're there in high numbers, they're disorganized and they're chaotic and they don't know what is going on. And there are going to be some inefficiencies that come out there too. So we look at assimilation, digestion from a lot of different angles.
Mhm. This is a good question from Carrie. I work a lot with women over 40 on their menopausal journey, lifestyle, labs, fitness, food that support their hormones, balancing blood sugar, etc. Will FDN provide me with more tools to support my clients?
Absolutely. So right now, I think you're saying that you're doing blood sugar and hormone testing. That's great. But they're going through this period where hormones are changing. So what have those imbalances in hormones caused the rest of the body systems to be doing? So like what's going on in the gut? What's going on with digestion and oxidative stress, what's going on with the mucosal barrier, what's going on in terms of bad guys that shouldn't be there that are, And if you can identify those internal stressors that are costing money out of the bank account, and get those under control, now there's more money to spend on hormone balance. So it's just more uh, resources in your arsenal to be able to put more money back in their bank accounts so that they can deal with this major life shift in the least affected way possible.
Great. So Ada asked, what is your opinion of the GLP-1 medications to deal with metabolic issues? So there is no official FDN stance. We don't have an official FDN stance on any particular medication. But Elizabeth, I'll let you share your thoughts. I've done a lot of research into this, so I can share. But again, this is not an official FDN opinion.
Why don't you go ahead and share, Brandy?
Okay. So, I think one of the important things to understand is that everybody is on their own journey, and there's a lot of people that could definitely benefit from these medications. However, there's a very big caveat that I want to put in here is you want to make sure that if you are using one of these medications, you are working with a practitioner who knows what they're doing and they are educated. The problem with medications like this is that because they become so popular, you'll see a lot of things on the internet of people taking them and seeing these wild before and afters. But what you don't see was the lack of education around nutrition and the lack of coaching on how to change their lifestyle. So what's happening is a lot of the negatives that are coming out on the GLP-1s or people using GLP-1s is because people are just using it as the thing to lose weight and they're not looking at it as a tool to help them make the lifestyle changes so that they can sustain it long term. There are several studies, and again, I've done a lot of research on this. There are several studies that show GLP-1s are beneficial in a lot of different ways, but not at the doses that they're being prescribed and not at the frequency that they're being prescribed. So again, it's very important that if it's something that you do, you need to make sure you're working with a practitioner who knows what they're doing and that there's absolutely coaching with yourself or your client around how to eat, how to use it as a tool, how to move, how to deal with the lifestyle factors that got you there in the first place so that you do not have to rely on it long term. So that's my take on it.
Great. Yep. That's great.
Awesome. Will a link for the November 7th workshop be emailed to us? Yes, so Brenda's been answering that in there. So we are going to be posting replays on our YouTube channel. So you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. You'll get notifications whenever we post something on our YouTube channel. But Brenda, I do believe also will be sending out an email when the replay is ready. So yes, we will be sharing this because I know a lot of you have reached out and said you can't stay the whole time or you're working. So we definitely heard you and we are doing replays. Let me see if I can go through. I think we answered a lot of the questions. Any last thoughts that you want to leave them with, Elizabeth, on D.R.E.S.S? I know they spent a lot of time with you and Reed last week, like kind of understanding who we are and metabolic chaos, but anything else you want to share with them specifically about how we do our protocols differently and the idea of D.R.E.S.S?
Yeah. So if you are already a health practitioner of sorts or a health coach, and you're just finding that it's a little daunting for each person that walks in, and everybody has fatigue, but like the same things don't work from one person to the next, to get to the root of it and to help really solve that problem for them, then this is the right place for you because we really get down to the root of it. And it, and we do that by looking at all of those foundational systems. So even if the cause of the fatigue isn't within one of those foundational systems, just by building up health in those systems, now the body has some vital reserve left. Now that innate intelligence that we all know about, it can heal itself. It does want to work at 100% function. Now we're able to really get there because we've gotten out of debt. And so, in that way, we don't chase root cause. It doesn't matter to us why this person is experiencing fatigue. It doesn't matter if we can measure it or we can't measure it. We can have a positive influence on it by making sure that all of these foundational systems that we measure are in the black in terms of their balances. And the more money they have, then the more money the body has to spend upstream on healing. So this is really who the FDN program will benefit most. And if you are experiencing some symptoms and you are caught in the cycle of trial and error, and you really want the answers about like, where are my bank accounts at? How do I fix these bank accounts that are all going into the red? Like, I'm totally in catabolic debt. I'm in hormone debt. I'm in immune debt. I'm in digestion debt. Like, I got to get out. Then this is a great place to come to, because you're going to get all these labs to do for yourself. And you, in that way, become your first client as you're learning to be a practitioner. You get to read the results. You get to experiment with writing a protocol for yourself. You get to confer with the mentor about what they think about that protocol. And then they can speak into it. So I just want to encourage everybody who's sort of on the fence and saying, oh, it's a lot of money, I just don't know, that if there is this little voice inside you that says, I can be more, I can have more, I can have a greater impact, I can help more people in a deeper way, this is the time to step up and bet on yourself. This is the time to say, fear is not going to keep me from meeting my potential. Fear is not going to keep me from rising to the moment and fulfilling my destiny. I am not going to keep playing small. I am not going to keep doing the same things that I've been doing that are keeping me poor and broke and run down. I am going to step up and meet the destiny that I know I am supposed to fulfill. This is one of the tools that can get you there. And I believe in all of you.
Fantastic. And as you were speaking, and I love Elizabeth, that's always a mic drop moment. There was some questions about testing, so I can absolutely answer that question. So somebody's asking, I'm in North Carolina, in ordering lab tests, you're not allowed to do it as an RD. How can I still be a practitioner? So this is a great question. And so for those of you who are already licensed practitioners, we have several licensed practitioners who have taken the FDN course. And the way it works is that you are not ordering it under your licensure. You're not using your RD hat to access testing for your clients. So that's first. Second of all, when we are talking about testing, we are not ordering it the same way that a doctor would order it because they're trying to diagnose a disease. So there's no diagnosis codes, there's no ICD-10 codes, there's no insurance involved here. We are facilitating the ability for our clients to access testing to self-test. Now, the beauty of what we do at FDN is we have our medical director program. So when you order testing through FDN, it is not your name on the lab as the practitioner or the ordering physician. It is our medical director. The same is true if you decide to work with our partner, Avexia. Avexia Diagnostics allows lab ordering for the US and Canada. They have medical directors. So when you access a test for your client, it is not your name on the test results. It is their medical director's name. And again, these tests are not to be used to make a diagnosis. So there's no diagnosis codes, there's no insurance. So there's no worry there. You are not using your licensure to order it. The second question that was asked, I'm in Canada, can I access testing? Yes, it doesn't matter where you live in the world, you can access testing. We have been working internationally for several years. That's one of the things that we pride ourselves on is the ability for us to get testing almost anywhere in the world. And we've worked really hard to have lab partnerships all over so that we can support you regardless of where you live. Just see here. Go ahead.
So there's one that came up in the Q&A box that said, can you also order lab tests as a certified health coach? We were told that this was out of our scope.
Yes, as an FDN practitioner, yes. New York is fine. We know that there's a lot of rules in the state of New York, And we have relationships with labs that are able to work with practitioners within New York or clients that are within New York. So New York is not a problem. Again, we have been doing this for so long. We were actually the first, our medical director program was the first of its kind, where we built lab partnerships with labs. We've had them now for almost 10 years, and we've built relationships to service New York, Rhode Island, that tend to be an issue. We can service Canada, we can service Australia, New Zealand, Europe, Asia, South America, Africa. We've been able to do all of that. So that is not a problem. And for those of you who have a lot of questions, because we are getting low on time, I did want to mention that I am going to be running a whole webinar about the medical director program and testing on November 26th. So for those of you who have a lot of questions about that, be sure to attend that webinar because I'm going to answer all of those questions all about testing on November the 26th. So I don't want to not answer your questions, but I know I'm just looking at time. Can we order tests in the
I do
UK?
want to
Yes.
say that like one of the notable exceptions where I don't think we can get tests right now is Russia. But generally everywhere else in the world, we're pretty good.
There are some parts of Russia we can, some parts we cannot. Same with Asia. Some parts of Asia we can, some parts we cannot. So if you're in those specific areas, you can definitely reach out to us. Anna asked where I practice in Canada. So I'm outside of Regina. I've also practiced in Ottawa. I'm from Ottawa and I practice in Ottawa. We have practitioners all over Canada. So Quebec, even though it's a difficult province, we've got people in Quebec as well. So not a problem. Let me just make sure. I think this is one question that would be good for you, Elizabeth, and then that will be the last question so we can wrap it up.
Yep.
But Alyssa asks, what would you say to someone who might wonder why would they work with an FDN over a doctor, say functional medicine doctor or holistic doctor?
Yeah. So doctors are great. They're amazing. Doctors are trained for disease. They are trained for diagnosis. And the functional ones, of course, they are learning to be more holistic. But what we have seen is that they are minted in the same model of symptom, test, then like confirm your diagnosis with the test from whatever you thought the symptoms were. And then instead of a drug, you give a supplement. There's still not a deep sort of understanding of how other factors of lifestyle need to be adjusted. There's not a holistic battery of tests that show you what's going on in all the systems. So the way that I think of FDN is like we partner really well with doctors because doctors are there for catastrophe when you do have that diagnosed disease. But for a lot of us, we're coming in with these really vague symptoms like fatigue, headaches, migraines, weight gain, lack of motivation, depression, like all of these things where the doctor's like, it could be a million things. So all I have is just supplementation to give you because I just have to get rid of the symptoms. But the way that I think of this is like there's a spectrum. And on this side, it's feeling amazing. And on this side, it's having a disease. But a lot of us fall in this gray area where we're not sick, but we're not well.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where FDN really shines, is in this gray space. So we're doing this non-diagnostic testing, which is the functional testing. So like out of 100% function, what has been lost and where? That's not going to get answered in functional lab testing or with a functional doc or a naturopath or any of that. They're still looking for disease and they're still like, well, all right, with these really vague symptoms, just take some supplements. Hopefully it works. So that's where I would say FDN is different, is that we thrive in the gray space. We're not there for disease. We're not there for catastrophe. We partner really well with doctors for that. But we do very, very well with these sort of vague symptoms because we're not trying to chase down the root cause. We're just trying to rebalance the picture of dysfunction that has been a result of all of these various systems being disbalance, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point. And the other thing that I like to mention too is that there's also depending on where you live, there's not a lot of functional medicine doctors. And even if you do find one, you're on a waiting list for a very long time, and they don't have the time to spend educating you. It's going to be very similar to a lot of the other times you go to a doctor. They may only be able to spend half an hour with you. As FDN practitioners, we spend the time with our clients to explain to them what everything means, what we're seeing, and we're coaching them and we're educating them. And unfortunately, a lot of doctors just don't have time for that. And because of that, we're seeing actually more and more doctors who are understanding the importance of this, hiring FDN practitioners to do that work because they don't have the time to do it. So I wanted to add that as well, because that's really what we are seeing.
Yep.
Fantastic. Well, thank you all of you who joined us today. I hope this was really informative. And we appreciate you for spending the last 90 minutes with us. As I mentioned, I will be going over a course tour on Thursday. So if you've registered, you will get the notification. So join me on Thursday, where I'll give you a behind the scenes look at what is in the FDN course, what to expect, and how we support you post-graduation. Elizabeth, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your amazing knowledge. And we hope to see everybody Thursday.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great
Thank
week.
you. Have a great day. Bye.